Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of OneMicNite podcast. This is a special edition. This is OneMicNite Artist Session Live. And I'm very, very happy because this episode is sponsored, and a big thanks and shout out to City Corps and nyfa.org, who have given an opportunity for artists who were struck by the pandemic a chance to, recoup and help them move forward with their art. So thank you a million times to help the artists out there who need the help. My episode today is, like I said, the first episode of OneMicNite Artist Live Sessions, where we go inside the studio with artists and see them in their environment. And we're going to learn a little bit about them and what they do. The artist today is a visual artist. He's an educator and he is an entrepreneur. Please welcome Nardo Franklin, aka So-Ful Arts, to OneMicNite. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you for taking the time and being here with me.
No problem. You know, it's easy for me.
Listen, I have questions.
Okay.
The first question is, who is Nardo Franklin? And who is
Nardo Franklin? Okay. Nardo Franklin. That's a loaded question. Okay. So a little bit about me. Nardo Franklin came from my middle name. So when I was at school one day, my friend was like, "What's your name?" And I told her, and she was like, "Oh, I don't think I like it." So she was like, "What's your middle name?" I was like, "Well, it's the Nardo." And she was like, "Nardo, I think I like that." So she literally gave me my name and she started calling me Nardo. So everybody started calling me Nardo. So from that point on, she was just like, Nardo. So everybody's like, "Who is Nardo?" So when that became a thing, I started painting at the school, and I've been painting my whole life. So when I went to college, that was not my story. So I was just like, okay, I'm gonna go to school for business, anything that's gonna make me some money. So when I started painting at Russ College, it was in Holly Springs, Mississippi. I had did a painting for a lady, and they was like, "Who did this?" And I was like, "Nardo did it." So from there, they was like, "No, you can't be here. You got to go somewhere else." So they literally transferred me to another school. Wow. So when I transferred from another school, I took on the name Nardo. So people would ask me who I was, and I was like, "Oh, I'm Nardo." So then they started comparing me to the artist, like, "Oh, like Leonardo." And I was like, "Oh, yeah." So I felt like that was my story. So that's the name. That's how I came Nardo.
So take us back a little bit. Like, how did you grow up? Where are you from? Like, tell us the whole.
So I'm from Nesbitt, Mississippi.
Okay.
So I was born and raised in Mississippi. Went to school in Mississippi. I transferred to Memphis, Tennessee, in order to receive my bachelor's in fine arts. So I'm now currently
through and through. I know a little something about Tennessee because I was actually born in Nashville, Tennessee.
Okay.
So I know a little something about the southern life.
So you know what? Yeah. So you already know.
I know, right?
So
how was that for you growing up in the South?
It was very different. I think I grew up fast. Mm-hmm. A lot of responsibilities at an early age. So when it became like going to college and stuff, I'm like, elder people not doing this? So I was literally driving at 13, had a license at 14. Wow. I had a job at 15. So like I'm in 10th grade and I'm working at Captain D's.
Right.
Literally making $5.25 an hour.
Wow, man.
So
I know that story so well. You know what I mean? Like we didn't have it
right
either. At 14, I mean, my mother was struggling to put me through school. I went to a boarding school as a single parent, but I would come home in the summer times and I was working at a fast food restaurant. So how did you? What made you feel like you could do anything? What made you feel like you could get out of Mississippi? Because a lot of people who come from the small cities or come from Mississippi, they don't have a scope, as wide. What was that?
Well,
how did that trigger for you?
Honestly, when I started developing myself as an artist at Lamar College, my professor, which is named Philip Dotson, he was tell me, like, "Man, you're gonna have to leave here." And I've always thought, well, pretty much dreamed about what it would be like to live elsewhere besides here. So when I moved to Memphis, it was just like, my parents could still put their hands on me. So it was like not really leaving anywhere.
Right.
So
because it was close, it was far, but it was close.
It was not even necessarily really far. It was like 30 minutes. So it was just like still a skip and a hop. So when he told me that I was leaving, I started to process that. And I was like, okay. So I applied for SCAD, ended up getting a scholarship for SCAD. And I was like, Atlanta. I was like, oh, let's go to Atlanta. It was Savannah at first. And then I was like, okay, well, it's one in Atlanta. So let's go to Atlanta. That didn't end up working out and ended up started teaching. So when that became a thing, the opportunity came down here. I was visiting when school was out, and I was just like, had a friend who was like, just go see what it would be like if you were to just apply. End up applying for a job, and then I got the job like on the spot. So it was very much so a reality for me because I was in shock. Like I didn't know what to do. I was gonna say,
what was going through your mind at the time? Like,
I didn't honestly, I cried because it was like when you think about it, like I had wanted to have this opportunity. So being able to just go on this job and literally having like, oh, it's my first year teaching, I don't have the credentials. And then somebody coming in there was like, no, you got everything we're looking for. I've already hired somebody for the position, but I want you. And it was just like, okay. So it was almost like a fairy tale. It's like, this can't be real. And then the reality really set in when I got back to my school in Memphis, Tennessee, and then actually physically saw the principal call and say, hey, we want one of your employees to transfer. And that's when it became a reality. And I was like, wow. So it's still unreal to this day. And I've currently been here for about 2 years. And it's still like, is this real?
Right, yeah. And that's what I wanted to say. Like, how do you get the confidence, to do what you do? Because a lot of times when we're navigating through life and we come from a small city or we come from a small place, and we're looking, our scope is worldwide or global. Where does that confidence come from? Was there somebody in your family that pushed you, or was it the teacher, or was it friends that?
It was more so. I would most definitely say it was more so friends. Definitely my mother was a big inspiration behind that. Was definitely saying she wanted me to transition somewhere else to learn a different style of people, a different style of communication, different style of opportunities, how to address different things. So when that happened, it was like, she was like, already knew it. So it was definitely one of those situations.
Now you mentioned Lemoyne College. That's a HBCU, right?
Yes, Lemoyne is a HBCU in the heart of South Memphis in Memphis, Tennessee.
What was that like?
So, Lemoyne College was an excellent experience for me. I had a professor who would not take any slack. Like, when I first got to the college, I will never forget the words he told me was, you're gonna either receive an A or an F in my class because I know you can do it. I want to see how well you can master it. And your grade will depend on how well you teach others. And I was just like, that's a lot of pressure for me. I was almost like, man, I just met you. You
that's good. That's good. That's good pressure though. You know what I mean?
It was good pressure.
Good pressure.
Yeah, because he called me to his office and he was like looking at our artwork. And he was like, what is this? I'm like, it's the assignment. And he was like, no, this is art. This is what I've been looking for. What have you been doing? So when he gave me that push, it was like from then, it was hard at first, receiving all the pressure because I knew I had the capability. But when you're in a area, Lemoyne College is a small college. So you have like 15 other talented artists that was just phenomenal. And here I am coming in like they've already steps ahead of me. So it was literally almost like a fight to move from being able to do work in the hallway to actually being able to do work in the classroom, because kids was already set up. Like
Wow.
everybody had their station, they had their areas, they had their place of inspiration. So it's like when you're coming in as a newbie, it's like, who are you and why you think you're going to sit in my spot? So it was almost like from that day, it was like a dominance. You had to literally push your way through these other 15 artists and show them what you were made of.
I like that, because it's either do or die. You know what I mean? Like you're fighting for your spot. And he was. Yeah. And he's spot on, because he told you you're either going to get an A or you're going to fail. So you got to fight for what you want.
Yeah,
right?
It was, and yeah, that most definitely. And I most definitely appreciated that experience, because growing up, I went to a predominantly white schools or whatever, and it was never like that. It was more so everybody had their own style. Everybody was just once united. And when I come to this HBCU, and it was just like, no, we're not united. You your own person, everybody's their own person. Then what you gonna do to put yourself on top?
Wow.
And it was a reality check. Like, how bad do you really want this now? So it's not like the cute was out the door. It's like, oh, the painting, oh, you can paint, oh, you can draw. All that's out the door now.
Right.
It's almost like, now that you have it, what can you do with it? How can you advance it? How can you?
It was a competition. It was a competition, but it was a friendly competition in the pursuit of.
I would definitely say it was a competition, but friendly. Some days it was very hard. It was almost like how would I say it? It was like almost fight to the end. Like, are you strong enough to withstand the situations that was going to come in hand? And we would have art shows and things like that. And the crazy part about it is we would be putting in work. I will never forget my first show. I did 22 pieces. Like, I was just booming. I was booming because I was like, I got to get on top. So we did this show we call LOC Sunday, which is like a big event that shows what the college is doing. So during this show, they would have a professional artist to come in and literally say, after we put this show up, who gets to stay and who gets to leave. So it was just like, man, like it was so much pressure.
That's a lot of pressure. It was.
So it brought out the reality of what is life going to be like when you're actually having to put your work into other places that you're unfamiliar with. How are you going to make yourself stand out? How are you going to make your presence be known versus just sitting in the corner and waiting for somebody to notice you?
Right. What are the kind of things that they teach you in art school? I've always been curious. So you have classes. What are the things they teach you?
So pretty much, I would say that my art school was different from a lot of schools that I've heard of. A lot of schools that I researched before I actually started going to college would tell you, oh, you'll take oil painting class, or you'll take acrylic class, or you'll take drawing classes, things like that. So my main focus for art was being able to be creative in my aspect. And I was never the type of artist that was able to be told, you have to draw this. That just didn't work for me. So when I was going to like the Memphis College of Arts and the Art Institutes and the Savannahs and all of these prestigious art schools, I was thinking like, do I want to be really restricted? So this school was much different because once he would give us an assignment, he saw my creative voice. And then from that perspective, he was like, okay, go on your own.
Right.
So that is what helped develop my mindset. And even with the developing of my mindset, it was more so of a whole thing. It was a physical thing. I had to think about the way that I conversed. I had to think about how I dressed. I had to think about my persona in which I came out to people. I had to think about my overall look, because now you're creating an audience. So he didn't just teach.
You're talking about, you mean
about
image of who you are and the art that you're presenting along with it.
Yes. So it was necessarily about, I would never forget, I painted this painting and it was black and white. And he was like, oh, it's very nice painting. But he was like, it's nice for Walmart. And I was just like, man, why is this man so tough?
Wow.
But what he would tell me is, he was saying that it's a pretty picture. And which it was. He said, I'm not saying that the artwork is bad. I'm just saying it's pretty. But there is no presence of you there. There's no representation of who you are as a person. Right. And that's why I said, like, you know, we're going to this school, like, it's like you couldn't just paint. You really had to know who you were. And it was a process of going through different situations and finding out what situations influenced which pieces. And it was crazy because it felt like at that point my life started turning around. I started dealing with a lot of things that I have never had to deal with in life. I had to deal with a lot of perspectives. I had to deal with a lot of criticism. I had to deal with a lot
because of the art, you mean you had to deal with things internally with yourself in order to. Okay.
Yeah, because it was just like, we're in a time now where money is like an instant thing. Like, people want to have quick money. So when you decide to take a life change for yourself, a lot of people don't know that when I was at Russ College, which is the college in Holly Springs, Mississippi, I was in my 4th year of college. So for me to actually make a rational decision and say that in my 4th year as a senior, I'm going to transfer to another school and possibly start over as a sophomore or a freshman to actually focus on the career goal that I should have started with in the beginning. That was a big thing. I was like facing a lot of people like, oh, you're wasting money. What you gonna do? Oh, you're gonna be in school forever. The art is not gonna get you there. So I literally had to develop a thing within myself that said, I'm going to make this goal because that's been my life dream. And not only am I going to make this goal, but I'm going to show people the different perspectives in which I can be successful in this goal that I have chosen to make for myself.
I love that. I love it. It doesn't matter when it comes, but when you find that day where the passion hits you about what you're supposed to do, and they call it, you know, that light bulb moment or whatever you want to call it.
Right, most definitely.
It's right on. It's right on time. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter when it is. When you find it. I like that.
Most definitely.
I love that. So now you're a teacher also.
Yes, I'm a school teacher.
So some of the things that you learned from a student, do you ever apply those to your teaching? Or
yes.
Or completely different?
Yes, definitely. I will never forget the 1 year that my first year of teaching, I did a painting and it was just like a barber cutting a little boy's hair. And it was just like, the painting was originally done by someone else, but I was doing an art show in the school. I was just doing work in the class, and I saw the painting, but I painted the composition in a different light. I had a student in my class, and he would talk about going to an interview at school. And I was like, oh, what you gonna wear? He was like, oh, I'm gonna put on some J's, I'm gonna put on my snapback. And I'm just like, are you going for a job or are you going to play ball? Like, and he really thought that making $7 at a job was the max he could make. And so when I recreated this composition, I called the painting Lil Mark, because it just symbolized a old man who was cutting this young boy's hair. And it just told me that these kids really need someone to look up to inspire them. Because the next day I told Lamarck, I said, well, Lamarck, you can't go to an interview like that. I'm sorry, you just can't. And I bought him a shirt and tie. And I was like, man, if you choose to wear it, then you wear it. But he had really said that no one ever told me how to dress for an interview. And that became a reality for me.
I love it.
So that painting meant a lot, because it was just like, if no one's teaching the correct way or the correct aspect, then how do you expect the students to be successful?
Right. You feel that responsibility just in general in life? I mean, is that?
Yes. Taking on the responsibility of a teacher comes with a lot. I tell people that it takes a village, and we're part of that village. And if you really think of it, we're a big part of that village. We're almost like parents. We're mentors. We're friends. We're, comforters. We're there to grasp those kids, because if you really think about it, a child wakes up in the morning, 6 o'clock. They spend most of their morning 6 to about 8 o'clock with their parents. From that time of 8 o'clock to 5 o'clock, they're literally with us all the time. So we have a sufficient influence on their lives.
Absolutely.
So a lot of times when they come at home, parents are not like, okay, let me spend time with you. Let me talk to you. Let me ask you about how your day was. They're not asking that. They're asking, can you just go get ready for bed so we can get up in the morning?
Right. Yeah. Because you're right. You are the ones who are absorbing everything that the child is dealing with at home. Plus, as an art teacher, you're trying to make them think in creative ways too. So you're teaching them things as well. So it's a lot.
And sometimes, a lot of times in my class, I know that I have faced situations in which I have to deal with the child's emotional standpoint that's at home before we can even get to the aspect of getting work done.
Right.
Because it's almost like you thinking as an adult, you can't ask a child to physically come in, sit down and do work done when they woke up with a bad morning, or they've had a rough night. So if you can't deal with that emotional aspect before you ask them to even take a chance of doing work, then you're going to really have a hard time.
Right. Do you find yourself teaching any kind of history of arts, like artists, and then, or do you you find yourself just teaching art, like how to do this?
Well, I teach art, and then I also teach the history of art, and then I also teach different aspects of art. I teach students how to become entrepreneurs through art, and I let them know that art that's not something as such as physical painting or drawing, but art can be architecture, it can be design, it can be jewelry making, it can be graphic designs, it can be gaming, all of those aspects that they can choose to be entrepreneurs in. A lot of times that's not taught. People tend to see the physical part of art, but not the actual part of art.
Right.
So I tend to make sure I do that. I tie a lot of it to history, like big events. Like currently in my class, I'm teaching my students Basquiat. A lot of times we forget about those artists because everybody is so focused on creating their new styles. Basquiat was one of those young artists, and I was trying to tell them that, with Basquiat, hey, he was like young. He created this artwork, and it wasn't necessarily just, how pretty it was or how nice it was. It was simply a feeling and emotion that he chose to portray in an artwork. Absolutely. And people loved it. And so how I tied that into my lesson, I created a lesson entitled Who Has the Bag? And I compared him to the rapper Jay-Z. And I put their pictures together, and I talked about Jay-Z's bag, and I talked about Basquiat's bag. And I was saying, who had the most money? So Jay-Z recently took a picture with a Basquiat painting that he purchased, and the kids was like, wow, he really spent that much money on that. And I had to let the students know it's not about how things look, but it's about the message that's given and about the person behind the work. So when they started to realize that that is the aspect in which you need to go for creating your business and doing artwork and just living in life in general, then it became a reality to them. It's like something clicked in their head, like, oh, wow.
You're absolutely right. It's people buying into the image of who you are and your story behind the art.
Right.
You know, and then as we
Most
interpret
definitely.
the art, you know, that's where we get all the different feelings and emotions and things like that. But people are buying into you and your story and what you're putting on the canvas or what you're putting on paper or what you're putting on, you know, whatever the medium is you're working in.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And that's how
That's definitely a big thing.
That's huge. Now I see some of the artwork in the background. And
Yes.
it's beautiful.
Thank you.
It looks like kind of, I don't know if it's two different series of works that you're doing, but two look like they're very vibrant in color, and the other one looks like a black and white series. Is that right?
Oh, so these two are my original works that's here.
Okay.
So in this original work, this is what I talked about in my class, my Mondrian series. So taught the students about Piet Mondrian, and I was talking about the modern styles of primary colors that he used. So I created this composition in order to represent that style of artwork.
Right. Just for the people who are watching, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but just for the people who are watching, Mondrian, he was French, right?
Yeah.
French artist who painted in the primary colors. We've all seen those. You know, we've seen them on handbags, we've seen them on shirts, we've seen them on like all types of different things. But yeah,
very modern style piece of artwork. Yeah. So I was teaching the kids how to create different aspects of artwork using Mondrian style. I'm very into showing the kids like how to transition things. A lot of times that I tell the students, they need to be able to look at something and determine, how would I change that? How would I fix that? What would I do if I was to create this composition? And that is a very important aspect. And it's not just a art thing, but it's a life tool. If they're presented with a situation at school or at home, then they need to know how to look into depth of that situation and be able to analyze how they would handle that situation.
Interesting. And I guess like also too, it's a way of taking something that may be a piece of history and you're updating it to a modern, like putting your own twist on an
Most
old
definitely.
or classic piece.
Most definitely.
And that's the artist.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
So it's very fun when you actually see the kids come to life and just see some of the ways that they actually comprehend what you're telling them, and then they just take it and run with it, and it's just phenomenal. Because I actually paint with my students when I'm in class. I don't just give them a whole bunch of words and history and tell them what to do. I actually let them see me physically working with them so that they know I'm working with them and not against them.
I love that. And see, that's where the inspiration comes from, because a lot of times, you know, we can talk about things, we can talk about history, we can talk about all those things, but when you actually see someone who's tangible doing it, then I think that's where the inspiration comes from for these
Most
kids.
definitely. And that makes a big difference. Believe it or not, we're in the age of what I consider the kids have been saying the show me state now. So like if you're having the kids, they don't want you to just tell them they can do it. They want to see you do it. And that's one of the aspects that I'm having to see this year a lot.
I like that. What about the other two paintings on the top there?
Okay, so this painting here, that is actually one of the paintings that I did when I was teaching the kids pop art. So we was learning a different pop art style, and I was just showing them how to be bold, how to be vibrant, not necessarily having to make things look real, but make things look the way you want it to look and be representing yourself.
I like that.
I did the lines in the middle of the painting off center because I wanted to let them know that everything doesn't have to be perfect and still be good. And if you teach them in that aspect of don't make perfect lines, don't make things so identical to something else. Be you, be that person that want to stand offline and be who they are. So that made a bigger deal as far as student teaching.
I like that. Yeah, you don't have to be perfect. It's all set to an interpretation.
Most definitely.
Yeah, individuality.
Most definitely.
Mm-hmm. Are you working on something right now? You can
So my current piece that I'm working on now is a pretty nice piece. I started off with, and let me see, I can so happily switch my camera. So as you can see, this is my workstation that's here. So I literally started this piece off by just painting a background, and I sat there and I looked and I was engaging into the background because I'm actually teaching the kids how to do Basquiat style of artwork. So as I was creating this composition, it spoke out to me. I saw trees that's here. So I literally saw this tree in this house that was in this composition. And when I saw that, it said to me that your past doesn't determine your future. So when I saw how far along I was in the front of this house and how much was behind me, it almost told me like, what am I doing with this part of it? And this is like, I was trying to figure out what this part is supposed to be. But when I got to this part, it was just like the story of, don't worry about what's behind you because that's not determining where you're going. So that's why it's more light on this side of the canvas.
Oh my gosh, I like that. I like that. So when you go into doing a painting, do you already have a concept, or do you sometimes just let it flow? Like you start with the palette, the colors, and then just let it develop?
Most of the time, as you can see, I will show you my paint bag in its raw state. As you can see, this is how I start off. It's literally just paint. And I don't necessarily have a particular palette or anything. I literally just pull from this bag and I go for it.
Like that, wow.
So I do a lot of expressionism style of artwork, which is meaning it's based on feelings and emotions. So when I do it in that aspect, then that pretty much means that you just go with the flow. Whatever feeling that you might have that day is what I portray into the artwork, because at some point in time, you might not feel that anymore. So a lot of times I try to get the artwork done pretty quickly because I want to definitely portray that feeling at that point in time.
The immediacy of the emotion.
Yes.
And we know the colors they evoke a feeling.
Yes.
So if you have red, it's passion, it's, like excitement.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like that.
Yes. And I've always painted in bold colors.
Mm-hmm.
Never knew why that was my thing, but I literally have everything that I touch is bold. Even when it's neutral colors, it's a bold. So I think that represents my personality so well, in which that's why I got my title of So-Ful Arts. Pretty much tells me So-Ful Arts became my story. It's just like sitting at a table and you have the feast of your life. And you become so full, you just don't know what to do with the rest of the experience. But you want to cherish it forever.
Ooh. Yeah. I like that.
Yes. So I try to make my art so full of feelings and emotional aspects, like you just said. And like I just said, that you want to cherish it. It makes you want to say, I'm that person. I feel that relates to me. I was the person who was in that situation. And now that they found a way out, I feel like I got hope. I can hang this up and say, girl, that's me. I did this. Or, yeah, that was me when I came through that situation. And I can relate to that because now I'm here.
Now you're here. I like that, because when I look through the gallery of your art, that's exactly what came to mind. Like the first thing was I relate to all these situations. Like there's something in each painting, each work that I relate to, and it made me feel a certain way. Did you consciously choose, and this may revert back to the HBCU, but did you consciously choose people of color to be in most of your work?
No, actually, that was one of my biggest issues when I started first painting. I didn't want my work to necessarily represent colored. A lot of the things that, of course, coming up from Mississippi, we've heard the terms in school of colored people a lot. And so I was thinking about that aspect of my life when when going into college. Okay, if we're gonna be colored people, let's be colored people, but let's be any color we want to be. So
And that's
it's
what I
just
see in your
like
paintings. That's exactly what I see.
it's like, who's to determine that I can't be blue today? Who's determined I can't be green today? And that's what makes us special as an ethnicity, because we can literally have multiple shades of melanin and color, and let the sun hit us in the right direction and you see a glow. Let the raindrops fall one time and you see a whole feeling of emotion. Or you could just be outside and have a light shining on you,
Right.
and you just see a whole who's to say that you can't be that person?
And to take it even a step further, just looking over your head now, with the afro and the tips are red, and the women are wearing red hair, blue hair, purple hair. It's all it's relatable to everyone. Everybody.
And that's also most important as well. I never wanted my work to be subjected to just African American culture. I wanted it to be subjected to anyone. So if someone of a Caucasian or Hispanic or Indian descendant, they looked at my work, I want them to still be able to portray the same message and feel the same feelings of emotion than just saying, oh, that's that person. Right. No, it's meant for everyone. So if that's the feeling that you have, then that means that work speaks to you because you're related to it.
Boom. There you go. And there you have it. Wow, man, that's something. So I got a couple of questions from the viewers that are watching right now. I got one from Sophia. She said, what's the first step to beginning her business? As an entrepreneur in the world, and as an artist?
Sophia, that is definitely a good question. What is the first step to beginning your business? I'm not no business consultant, so I'll just let you know what works for me was I first determined who I was and what did I want to get out there. There's a lot of people that has the same business. There's a lot of artists out there that does painting. There's a lot of painting people that does jewelry making. They do candles. They do varieties of business. But what changes the perspective or the narrative of that business is who you are as a person and what do you want your brand to represent. So I will most definitely say, figure out what it is that you want to sell. What do you want your brand to represent? And how does it relate to your personality when people think of you and your product?
There you go. Tamika wants to know, she's an artist and a poet. How did you know this is what you wanted to do? Like, how did you know? And I think we kind of answered that one already, but she wanted to know, how did you know this is what you want to do?
I literally won my first art contest in 3rd grade. Mm-hmm. And I drew a pink house with blue curtains and grass and that. And literally from that day, when they came back, and I was literally in the class contest, and I won at the fair, and I came back with 3rd place. And from that day at 8, 7, I knew then that, hey, I'm going to be an artist when I grow up. And I pushed that my whole life. Like, that was always my MO, is to be an artist. So when Christmas time came, for me, I didn't want toys. I didn't want shoes. I didn't want any of that. I wanted canvases. I wanted paint stuff. I wanted art kits. I wanted art sets. I would ask my teachers for the back of my worksheets to draw on, like if they had any extra worksheets. So it was pretty much like, at that point, like, are you gonna give up this dream or are you gonna go for it? So I did it. That's when I knew that, and I made a promise to myself that at the end of this journey of college, I wouldn't do anything as far as a career unless it portrayed to art.
Wow. That's the journey right there. That's how you know.
Yeah.
I love that.
It was it's worked since then.
It's worked, yeah. Well, listen, I want to thank you for your time. Thank you for being on this OneMicNite Artist Session live.
Please
tell everybody how we can get in touch with you. What's the best way?
Okay, so you can find me online at www.sofulartsgallery.com. You can also check me out on Instagram at So-Ful_Arts. You can find me on Facebook at So-Ful Arts Gallery, Nardo Franklin, or you can also find me at Nardo Franklin on Facebook.
There you go. You got the information. Make sure you check him out. He's got some
most definitely
art.
Go follow me.
And I also know that you have art that's affordable for everybody too. That I do know.
Most definitely. I think that is very important. Going back to the first question, being able to get yourself out there and make it affordable for everyone. We're now in a time of where, of course, COVID is definitely real, and people don't really have the money that they are wanting to spend. So if I could give any advice to any artist, I will say make things available for people to shop with you. Make things available for people to shop with you. Think in every aspect. The likelihood that a person is going to spend $1,800 on a painting from you is very slow, 1 in 5. The likelihood that a person may spend $200 or $300 in a climate where everything is that price is likely.
Absolutely.
Does everything have to be that price? No, it doesn't. But at least make it available so that people could share their information with you and say, hey, I could get this for this price. That's how you determine ways to get out there when you're setting up your business.
Right. And we all want to experience art. We all want art. We all want to see art. I want nice art in my place, you know? So everybody, please make sure, thank you for that. Make sure you follow him at So-Ful_Arts.
Follow me.
Go to the So-Ful Arts Art Gallery. Check out some of these beautiful paintings and check out the merchandise. Carry a little bit of the merchandise with you. He has bags, totes, prints, everything. I know that for a fact. I want to thank you guys all for joining me for the OneMicNite Artist Session. Much, much more to come. And a big shout out to nyfa.org and City Court for sponsoring this episode. Also, you can follow us at OneMicNite. OneMicNite is spelled OneMicNite. Check out the podcast, OneMicNite Podcast with Marcos Luis. It's on all digital platforms. It's on Spotify, Apple Music, iHeartRadio. Follow me at Marcos Luis, MarcosLuis, and find out what I do. Thank you for joining me for this episode. See you next time.
All right, peace.